Jay Horowitz with a special edition of Amazing Conversations with the great Boomer Esiason, host of the number one rated WFAN Boomer Geo Show. That's my Imus imitation, Boomer. And a fixture on NFL Today. I know you don't need another job. Can I give you a job for a couple minutes?
Sure,
If
Jay,
you were the
whatever you
GM of
need.
the Giant and the Jets, what would you do today? Both
Well,
teams.
if I were the Giants, I would definitely rip it all apart and start over. This is what I've been advocating on WFAN for the last few weeks. As soon as Daniel Jones went down, I think the season was, a foregone conclusion. And now, not that the players or the coaches think this way, but maybe the front office might, maybe the ownership will. You got to be thinking about the upcoming future years and the sustainability of your franchise. And because the Giants have not been very good over the last 10 years, it's time to make a move. And I'm not talking about the head coaching move. I'm talking about a quarterback and to restock this roster that is kind of weak on players. And I think it's really up to Joe Shane, their general manager, to rebuild it around a young quarterback. And hopefully, from my perspective, they get either the first or the second pick in the draft, at the upcoming 2024 draft. Most people believe that there are two can't miss quarterbacks at the top of this draft. One, of course, being Caleb Williams from USC, and the other one being Drake May from North Carolina. So if the Giants can get one of those two players, then they got to start their rebuild and they got to do it immediately. But that would force them to lose the rest of their games, I believe, and only win 2 games out of 17. And these next 2 months would be a long 2 months for the Giant fan, the Giant coaching staff, and of course the Giant front office and ownership.
Boomer, I've been a season ticket holder to Giants 1958. Way back. Did your heart go out to Tommy DeVito yesterday? I mean, local kid, you were from New York, played for the Jets. How much empathy did you feel for him yesterday?
When you put that in a singular thought, it's a great thought. It's a great dream come true for the local young man. Seems like a really great kid. I don't think he ever thought that he was going to be starting for the Giants as this season began, but I'm sure it was a dream of his when he was growing up. He did play quite a few games in college and was certainly a good player in college, and there's no reason why he couldn't actually get onto a football field in the NFL and be somewhat successful. But he's just not ready to play. People don't realize what goes into the position of playing quarterback at this level and how quick the game is, how many things you have to learn. And quite frankly, if you are the practice squad quarterback when the regular season starts, you don't really get to work with the first team. You don't get to see a lot of the real defenses. You're doing a lot of scout teamwork, getting your own team prepared to play against their next opponent. So, Tommy's accorded himself well. Nobody's expecting anything but what he has done. As long as he doesn't turn the ball over and play foolish football, then he's thinking the right way and in the right way that a quarterback should be thinking. So I'm happy for him. It's a dream come true for him, and maybe there's a movie in here somewhere. Who knows?
How about the Jets?
Well, they have a problem at quarterback too. Zach Wilson was a second overall pick 3 years ago and just has not turned himself into a top level quarterback who was drafted that high in the draft. And we see the same mistakes that we've seen for the last 3 years. He's 30 games into his career. You usually get a really good handle as to whether or not a kid has grasped the enormity of what he's doing and able to process the field as quickly as you need to be. And, if I compare him to CJ Stroud, who was this year's second overall draft pick, who's playing for the Houston Texans, there's really no comparison. CJ's light years ahead of him, and he's only 7 games or 8 games into his career. So you just wonder if Zach has what it takes, especially in this market, to become that quarterback. I don't think he has that. I think he needs to go somewhere else in a smaller market with a different offense, a different voice in his ear, and get out of this noise market of the NFL. But you can't do that now. That would have to come at the end of the season. And, like I said, we're a long way away from that. And there's a lot of learning still yet to be done. But I just don't see the future for Zach Wilson being a part of the Jets after 2023.
But how does the C.J. Stroud and the Joshua Dobbins stuff happen? Joshua Dobbins, 2 wins, great wins. C.J. Stroud, I mean, it's just luck, good scouting. How does that stuff happen?
Well, Josh has been around a while. He's played on at least 5 different teams in the last year. So everybody in the NFL knows who Joshua Dobbs is. He was with Mike Tomlin in Pittsburgh, and I guess they felt like their quarterback room was really crowded, so they got rid of him. And then he was traded to the Cardinals like 2 weeks before the regular season started this year in 2023. And everybody knows he's a smart kid. They call him the Pastronaut. Because of his engineering background, and I guess that's what he majored in college, electrical or space engineering or whatever it was. So he's an extremely bright kid. I don't think people are overly overwhelmed by his arm strength, but he certainly has got the smarts to play the position. So Minnesota did the right thing. They tried to save their season. They had to get somebody who could play just in case the rookie that they were starting in place of Kirk Cousins got hurt or couldn't handle it. Well, of course, the rookie gets hurt. So now Josh gets a second chance. So it's really one of the best stories in the NFL this year. And they're on a good team, and he's on a good team, and everybody seems to like him. So maybe they make it to the playoffs. As far as CJ Stroud, that's like hitting the lottery. I mean, to have a kid come in, second overall pick, and be the starter and get your team into the playoff hunt halfway through his rookie season, that's nothing short of amazing, Jay. That would be like, a rookie starting pitcher being in contention for, let's say, the Cy Young, because he's in contention not only for Rookie of the Year, but the MVP right now as we speak.
That's crazy.
And
Yeah.
yeah, and how about if your first round draft pick, led the league in batting or led the league in home
Yeah.
runs? I mean, that's kind of what this kid is doing for Houston. And I'll tell you what, it's great to see it. It's great to see young kids really step in and be able to handle it, which is really amazing from the eyes of not only myself, but many have played the position over the years.
Isn't it crazy what happened with Rogers, 4 plays, and Daniel Jones comes back? And it's nuts, isn't it? What happens to these two local teams?
Yeah, it's really sad. And unfortunately, we've been through this with a lot of local teams around here. And when you do what I do for the last 17 years, you see a lot of ups and you see a lot of downs. And when the teams are down, whether it be our New York Mets or whether it be the Knicks, the Rangers, the Islanders, the Devils, you name it, I can feel it, through the airwaves from the fans. I mean, they want blood. They want to win. They're spending a lot of money supporting a lot of our local teams, and watching what happened with Aaron and Daniel is just it's sad. You never want to see guys of that character, that integrity, go out there and not be able to do what they do best, and that's play football. But for Aaron, he woke up from a darkness retreat. I'm not sure if you know this, Jay. And when he woke up from that darkness retreat last offseason, he said he wanted to play for the Jets. And unfortunately, now he's really finding out what darkness is all about, because I mean, you can't make this storyline up. And certainly I hope for his sake that he does not try to push it and come back towards the end of the season. That would be, I don't think that would be a very smart move. I
Is that
think he should.
crazy? He said, "Listen,
he-
December he wants to play."
yeah, I don't think so. I think that's all nonsense. And I do believe that he should wait until next year, make sure that Achilles is totally healed and come back stronger than ever. And hopefully the coaching staff hangs here and stays here, because you never know about the owners. And this business, Jay, you've worked in it for a long time. These owners get pushed for different reasons, whether it be friends in their own inner circle, whether it be the fan base, the business side of the team and the organization is saying, well, we can't sell tickets because of the present product that we're putting out there. So there are a lot of variables that will determine whether or not these coaches and front offices will stay here, depending on how the owners feel about them.
But when you played with the Jets in the mid-'90s, how much has the media landscape changed from when you were there to what it is now? It's night and day, right?
It is
From the
night and day.
90s.
Yeah, it's really night and day. I mean, it was the back pages back in my day. It was the talk shows. It was, Mike and Chris, of course, on WFAN, Imus in the morning. ESPN was, just really getting its footing going. They didn't have all these different opinion shows that they have now. Social media has basically ruined the landscape I think, of sports. I mean, there's a lot of good reasons for social media, but then there's all the bad that comes along with it and how these players get themselves in trouble. And if they are tied to their phone, which almost 95%, if not 99% of the young player is, they're seeing all their mentions. They're seeing how many people, like, if they play well, it's great to pick up your phone, and because everybody wants to be liked. But if you play poorly and you play poorly for a number of years, let's say like Zach Wilson has, I can't even imagine what he must be dealing with from a mental standpoint
It's
of
got to
just being
affect him, right? It
bombarded.
has to affect him.
Yes. Yeah,
Yeah.
we're all human. I
It-
mean,
it- it-
you never liked when we made fun of you on WFAN, so we always heard back from you, hey, stop making fun of me. You know,
Well, yeah, speaking of, what was it? What was I going to say? You're with your teams are doing great, right? The Rangers are great. The Knicks are over 500. And your
Yeah.
pecking order is it Rangers, Knicks, Mets, Rangers, Knicks, the same? How would your pecking order be?
Well, my pecking order is Rangers first, Mets second, Knicks third, and
Right.
the Rangers have always been my first love. My dad took me to Madison Square Garden when it opened in 1968. He actually worked on the building, and his company, who he worked for, had some season tickets. So I think we made about 5 or 6 games from the ages of 7 to about 15. He would come back out to Islip, pick me up. We'd take the train back in. We'd go to a Ranger game on a Saturday or a Sunday. And I mean, I just loved going to those games. I just loved the intensity and just the high velocity, even back then, of what I think is the greatest sport to see in person. So, and then if it wasn't that, then I was sitting on the stoop in my Mets uniform waiting for him to come and get me and take me to Shea Stadium.
Who's your
And we
favorite
would do
Met Boomer?
Tom Seaver. I don't know if you can
Yeah.
see over my shoulder. There's a Tom
Yeah.
Seaver statue that my previous partner, Craig Carton, gave to me for my 50th birthday. And it's one of the most beloved statues that I own. And it's a beautiful statue done by a very dear friend of mine. So, uh, Tom has always been my favorite guy. And when I took to the air, Jay, I don't know if you know this, but back in 2007, when Craig and I started this campaign. I wanted a Tom Seaver statue out in front of City Field. I
I
wanted
remember.
that.
I remember.
And
I,
I'm like, I can't believe that we are not honoring one of our best players for whatever the reasons are. I don't know. I'm not,
yeah.
privy to all the internal conversations. And I got a chance to see Tom and Nancy Seaver out at their winery during Super Bowl 50 in San Francisco. I made it a mission of mine to go see his winery up in Calistoga, go sit and talk with him. And he was just in the beginning forays of what he was dealing with from a mental aspect. But he knew who I was. And we sat and we talked baseball. We talked history. I asked him about being a New York Met when I was a kid. And it was really an amazing time for me to be able to sit there looking at one of my idols and getting a chance to sit down and talk with him and have a great conversation. So he is my
He had a
all-time
great sense
favorite
of
Met.
humor, Boomer. The first in '73 when he came back from the Reds, I was in the training room in St. Petersburg in Florida, and he was in the whirlpool. I said, "Man," I go, Mr. Seaver, can I talk to you for a minute?" He pulled me over to the whirlpool, took the hose, put it down my pants, ruined my suit and my things. But that was my first meeting with the great Tom Seaver. What was it? Any favorite game, Boomer? You remember?
Oh my
Seeing
God, there were so many games. I can't remember that far back, Jay. All I remember is wearing the number 41 jersey to school. A couple times at Halloween, I would dress up as Tom Seaver when I was a kid. Rod Gilbert, and Walt Clyde Frazier were the three New York athletes that I idolized growing up. I had to have a pair of the Pumas, the red Pumas that were the Clydes. I had Rod's jersey, I had Tom's jersey, and of course, I loved the great Burt Jones, who played for the Baltimore Colts. One of the reasons why I wore number 7 along with Rod Gilbert. So those were my 4 idols growing up.
those
I
good
had a
idols.
chance. I had a chance to meet all 4 of those guys. And when you meet your idol and they show you the respect that I was showing them when I was a kid, it just made me realize that I picked 4 of the great guys of all time. And I often think back about that, and I hope that I would carry myself as a professional athlete the way that they did, and hopefully I inspired some young man or young woman somewhere along the line to go after their dreams as well.
But we don't really mind about you. I've been around a long time, 40 plus years. The way you've kept the charity for Gunner going for almost 30 years. I mean,
Yeah.
it's really the money you've raised, the visibility you've gotten. I mean, and now Gunner's married, has a son, right? I mean,
That's right. Yeah, it's
and
it's,
you,
it's real. We're living a real miracle, Jay, to be honest with you. And people don't know really how I got started in all this. They all think it's because Gunnar was diagnosed with CF. But in 1989, I was fortunate enough, the 88 season, the 89 off season, I received my MVP award.
right.
And it was at a dinner in Washington, D.C. And Frank DeFord was speaking at that dinner. And Frank had lost his daughter, Alex, to the disease of cystic fibrosis at the age of 8. I did not know that. I didn't even know what cystic fibrosis was until that night. And I was so floored by his story that I asked him after that dinner if I could get involved in any way, shape, or form to help put a name or face or raise money for CF. Now, this was 1989. Gunnar was not born until 1991. So I was involved in CF 2 years prior to Gunnar's birth. Gunnar was not diagnosed with CF until 1993, my first year with the New York Jets. As a matter of fact, my first practice with the Jets in May of 1993, I got called out of that practice, had to go back to Cincinnati, and that's when I found out Gunnar was diagnosed with CF. So 4 years later, from that 89 dinner, that fateful dinner that I met Frank DeFord and got involved with cystic fibrosis research, I found out that my own son was diagnosed
Wow.
with cystic fibrosis. So
But
that's how weird and
but the way
the,
you kept it going, I mean, and the visibility is all every place, great events, hospitals in Gutter's name, and it's just amazing to keep it going that long. I know one of our guys, Johnny Franco's involved with a lot of stuff that you do, right? Johnny's a good friend and a good sense of charity stuff too. So I know he's done a lot of your stuff for you too, right, through the years.
100% Johnny's been involved in a lot of different things we've done at the radio station, not just for my foundation, but Johnny's always available. He's never forgotten where he came from. And a quick story, I could have been Johnny's teammate at St. John's. A lot of people
Really,
don't realize this, that Howie Gershberger was a
pitching
gym
coach, right?
teacher at East Islip High School, where I
Yeah.
went to high school. And Howie was a roving scout for the California Angels, I believe, at the time. And he is also a coach, a pitching coach, I believe, for St. John's.
Yes,
And
yes, yes.
right. So in 1977 or 78, when I was at East Islip High School, he was teaching me the rotation drill for pitchers. And I was a left-handed pitcher. So my senior year, I went undefeated, and I had a great senior year as a baseball player. As a matter of fact, I think I was a better baseball player than I was a football player. But I had already accepted a scholarship to Maryland to play football. And Howie was trying to get me to go to St. John's, and it would have been me, Frank Biola, and Johnny Franco, I believe,
It's pretty
on
good.
that staff. That would have been pretty good back in the day.
That would have been pretty. That would have been that would have been a really good staff. Um, but let me ask you about when you began. Did you think you would be doing this long? When Imus, Imus is a good friend of mine. He was great to me. Put me on. He knew I didn't sleep, so he put me on like 4 o'clock in the morning when he came on. I, but did you think you would be doing this long?
Yeah, I don't know, Jay, to be honest with you. I was on with Imus too. I was a part of his original show
Right,
during the football season with Phil Simms. We would call in on Mondays and we'd banter back and forth with Imus and his crew. And he was really good to me. And it was interesting when he did finally get fired from WFAN. I believe it was April of '07. And I was on the line trying to call into his radiothon, and his wife Deirdre was actually
right,
sitting in for him because he had just been suspended because of what he said about the Rutgers women's
right.
basketball
Rutgers
team.
coach, right?
And so I called in, and Eddie Scazzeri, our board op now, was actually producing that show that day, that fateful day that he was fired. And as I'm calling in, Eddie says, "We're not taking any calls. Is just announced he got fired. And, we're not taking any calls right now." I said, "Okay, man, wow, I'm shocked. I can't believe this is happening." And I'll hang up the phone. And literally 30 seconds after I hung up the phone, my phone rang. It was my agent, Steve Rosner, who was actually in the studio that day for that telethon because he was on the board of Joel Hollander's CJ
Yeah, Joe's a
Foundation for
good friend.
SIDS, which was also a part of that telethon. And Joel was in the radio business and was also running WFAN when I was with the Jets back in the early 90s. And they asked me, literally 30 seconds after I got the news, "Would you be willing to do a morning show at WFAN?" I'm like, four hours every day, 5 days a
Yeah,
week, getting up at like 4 o'clock in the morning. You're out of your minds. And then the more I thought about it, I said, I'd give it a shot and see what happens. But they would
yeah,
have to pair me with the right person, of course. And it was Chris Olivero and Mark Chernoff over at WFAN who put me and Craig Harton in a studio on July 4th or 5th of 2007, said, "Here's some topics, talk it out, guys." And we talked it out. And 30 minutes after we got done talking, they said, "That's the show. That's what
yeah.
we're going to open with in 2007 of September."
10
And I've been
years,
there
right?
ever since.
But Boomer, tell me about your bot play with Phil Simms. I mean, go back and forth with him, do
Yeah.
commercials, and it's a great bot play. And been friends a long time, right?
Yeah, I have a tremendous amount of respect for Phil, and I would like to think he for me. We like to do play around a little bit on TV and on radio when we're in public. We make fun of each other, but in a loving way. There's nothing mean spirited or anything about it. We have a healthy respect for each other and what we accomplished as football players and as men. I remember covering Phil Simms' Super Bowl out in Pasadena at the Rose Bowl, where he won 22 of 25. And
I
to
was
this
there.
day, yeah, to this day, it was one of the greatest Super Bowls
Yeah.
I had ever seen. And I was covering it for a local CBS affiliate in Cincinnati while I was still playing for the Bengals. We hadn't gotten to that level yet. We were right behind them. They were there in 86. We got there in 88. So we were 2 years removed from each other in the Super Bowl. And I'll never forget that. And I'll never forget the way that, he played that game and how he was zeroed in. So our friendship goes back a long, long time. The respect for each other has been around, since the day that I met him. But, we were also competitors on the field. And he'll tell me he's got the Super Bowl rings. I'll tell him I got the MVP. And
And it
then
was
he'll
a
tell
Payton
me,
Award.
right, right. Then Walter Payton Award. And then I'll tell him, by the way, every time you and I were on the field together, my team won. Then he'll say, yeah, but I threw for 513 yards against you guys in Cincinnati. So, yeah, there's always a one-upsmanship, if you will.
But we know what respect through the years. We stayed loyal to the Mets. You didn't. What was it, Craig? The Mets fans for Yankee fans. You never bought
Yeah.
into that, right?
Mets
You stayed.
fans for Yankees? Yeah, I
Yeah.
was no, I was never buying into that. Craig was such a front runner. All he wanted was tickets behind home plate from the Yankees. That's what he wanted, and he
Yeah.
dragged me there. But what
Yeah.
was really funny, I got to tell you this, Jay. Here's another story that goes back to supposedly it was my Met lineage. It has nothing to do with Craig, but it was 2008. It was opening day at Shea Stadium. And the Wilpons were nice enough to invite both me and Craig to opening day to sit behind home plate with a lot of the other VIPs and people that were either owners of the Mets or were there for different reasons. And I remember telling Craig, I said, look, you're going to sit to my left and you're not going to talk to anybody. Because I don't want you embarrassing me. I don't want you to do anything stupid. I don't want you to spill your beer on Mrs. Wilpon or this, that, the other thing, And we made a whole shtick out of it. I got to be honest with you. We made a whole shtick out of it. And then it became, Boomer and Carton, where's Carton sitting and how he's going to, basically be a pain in everybody's ass and all that other stuff. So, I mean, we had a great time together for 10 years, Craig and I, and it really one of the most enjoyable things we ever did was go to Met games. And we had a box in the original or the first couple of years of City Field. We shared a box, and that became a problem because there was always some issue. They needed extra tickets, or he wanted the tickets for that game. I wanted the tickets for this game, and it became a pain in the ass. But it was part of the shtick. It was a part of the show for 10 years. And I still have wonderful memories about all of that, especially around the Mets and the success that they had in the World Series when Matt Harvey should have been taken out after 8 innings, but he
Yeah.
wasn't. And unfortunately, we lost to the Royals.
Yeah. Hey, Boomer, I listen every day. I appreciate your time and hope to see you at City Field next year sometime.
Anytime, Jay. My pleasure. Great to see you,
Thank
my
you for your
friend.
time. I appreciate you, my friend. Thanks a
You're
lot,
welcome.
Boomer.